Imagine waking up tomorrow and the world as you know it has gone silent. No internet, no phone service, no GPS. It's not a scene from a sci-fi movie. It's a potential reality that scientists are warning us about. They're calling it the Internet Apocalypse, and it could be triggered by a massive solar storm predicted to peak around 2025. So what exactly would happen if this solar superstorm hit us tomorrow? First, let's understand what we're up against. Our sun isn't just a giant light bulb in the sky. It's a bubbling, turbulent star that occasionally spits out huge clouds of charged particles and magnetic fields. These are called Coronal Mass Ejections, or CMEs. Most of the time, they miss Earth entirely, but sometimes they head straight for us. When a powerful CME hits our planet's magnetic field, it can induce massive electrical currents on the ground. Think of it like a planet-sized electromagnetic pulse. The last time we experienced something of this magnitude was in 1859, known as the Carrington Event. Back then, the world's most advanced technology was the telegraph. The solar storm was so powerful, it fried telegraph systems, gave operators electric shocks, and even caused telegraph pylons to throw sparks. Some systems continued to operate even after being disconnected from their power sources, running solely on the storm's induced current. Now, imagine that same energy hitting our modern, hyper-connected world. The consequences would be catastrophic. Our global internet infrastructure is surprisingly fragile. A huge portion of it relies on long undersea cables that connect continents. These cables have repeaters spaced about every 50 to 150 kilometers to boost the signal. These repeaters are incredibly vulnerable to the geomagnetically induced currents from a solar storm. A powerful storm could fry them, effectively severing the digital ties that bind our world together. So, if the storm hits tomorrow, what's the immediate fallout? The first thing to go would be the internet. Not just your Wi-Fi at home, but the entire global network. This means no social media, no streaming services, no online banking, and no digital communication. Short-distance land-based connections like local fiber optic networks might survive because they're less susceptible. So you might have a local network, an intranet, but you wouldn't be able to connect to anything outside your city or region. The global village would instantly shatter into isolated digital islands. This isn't just about losing access to cat videos. The entire global economy would grind to a halt. Financial markets, which rely on split-second international transactions, would collapse. Supply chains would be thrown into chaos. Companies like Amazon, which depend on a global logistics network, would be paralyzed. We're talking about an economic impact that could make the 2008 financial crisis look like a minor hiccup, potentially costing trillions of dollars per day. But the problems go much deeper than just the internet and the economy. Our power grids are also extremely vulnerable. A solar superstorm could induce currents that overload transformers, causing widespread, long-lasting blackouts. And we're not talking about a few hours or even a few days. Replacing these massive, custom-built transformers can take months or even years. Without electricity, modern life ceases to exist. No lights, no refrigeration, no running water in many areas, and no way to power the devices we rely on for everything. GPS satellites, which orbit outside much of the Earth's protective atmosphere, would also be at high risk. They could be damaged or completely knocked out. Without GPS, everything from navigation apps on your phone to aviation and shipping logistics would fail. Planes might be grounded. Ships would be lost at sea. Emergency services would struggle to locate people in need. The intricate dance of modern logistics would simply stop. So day one is chaos. Day two, things get worse. Without communication, people wouldn't know what's happening. Rumors and panic would spread like wildfire through word of mouth. Governments would struggle to coordinate a response. How do you manage a national or global crisis when you can't communicate with anyone? Local communities would be on their own. Weeks into the internet apocalypse, the secondary effects would be devastating. Without electricity and modern logistics, food and medical supplies would run out in cities. We'd see a desperate migration from urban centers to rural areas, putting immense strain on resources. Hospitals would struggle to function without power and a steady supply of medicine. Clean water would become a luxury. We would be thrown back into a pre-industrial age, but without the skills and local infrastructure that people had back then. Our reliance on a globalized, just-in-time system would become our greatest weakness. So what can we do? Is this inevitable? Not necessarily. Scientists are working hard to improve our ability to predict these solar events. Space weather forecasting is a growing field. A few days of warning could give us time to take defensive measures, like powering down sensitive parts of the grid and putting satellites into a safe mode. But this is a temporary fix. The real solution is to harden our infrastructure. We need to build power grids and internet cables that are resilient to these geomagnetically induced currents. This involves upgrading systems, installing protective devices, and rethinking how we build our global network. It's a massive, expensive undertaking, but the cost of inaction is infinitely greater. Some countries and companies are already starting to take this threat seriously, but progress is slow. This isn't about fear-mongering. It's about being aware of a very real, high-impact threat that we are currently unprepared for. The sun has been flaring for billions of years, and it's not going to stop. Another Carrington-level event isn't a question of if, but when. And with the solar cycle peaking around 2025, the risk is higher than it's been in over a decade. We've built a magnificent, interconnected world, but we built it on a foundation that's vulnerable to the whims of our own star. The internet apocalypse scenario shows us just how fragile that world is. It's a stark reminder that while we look to the future, we also need to protect ourselves from one of the oldest forces in the universe. Hopefully, we can strengthen our defenses before we're forced to live through the consequences. Thanks for watching. What do you think is the most frightening part of a potential internet apocalypse? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video interesting, make sure to like and subscribe for more content that explores the biggest questions about our world and our future. See you next time.